Wait a minute. Hear this.
Birdy num num. Birdy num num. Birdy num num.
What's up, ladies and gents, and welcome back to another episode of the Birdy Num Num podcast. We are making history today because we have a repeat guest, second time around. Very requested, so thank you, everybody. Sam, what's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, it's going well. Happy and really glad to be back.
Doing well?
I
Yes.
had a lot of fun last time.
Yes, and I'm going to get straight into it because you guys already know Sam. He is a restaurateur here in Bangalore, owns Chinita, which is a great place. Go check it out. But the reason, Sam, that you are here, again, gracing us on the podcast is you and I have had a lot of conversations offline, as they say in the corporate world, about the corporate world.
Yeah.
And why I think the listeners need to hear this this week is I'm ex-Accenture, you are ex-E&Y. A lot of people who listen to this are, 25, 30, 35 corporate and always asking themselves, what else?
Yeah.
What do I do with this extra money? What do I do with my extra time?
Absolutely.
All that stuff. And we've had a lot of conversations about this. So it's very important, I thought, that all of you, whether you're watching or listening, would hear from two people who did the grind in America, did the corporate Fortune 500, whatever it is, saw the life on the other side, business class travel, hotels, family vacations, all that stuff, and took the road less traveled. So all of you already know, follow your passion. All of you already know it takes time to do what you want, entrepreneurship and all.
Yeah.
I want to get straight into it with one point, all
Sure.
right? And then we can take it from there. I was reading this book and there was something that really struck a chord with me where I always kind of spin my wheels. I need to podcast. I need to make videos.
Yeah.
I need to get in shape. I need to, learn more about SEO and video making, all that stuff. But I never really sit and think things through. And a quote that resonated with me very well, and it's been with me for the last few weeks, was don't confuse being busy with being productive.
Yeah.
You as somebody who you got your sleeves up right now, even, getting dirty and working hard. What's your take on kind of not only having a plan, but kind of taking a step back to kind of work smarter and harder,
Yeah. I mean, I think being busy, like in life, it's the times when you're actually inactive and you're sort of able to step back and kind of be, at total peace, where there's not too much running. Mm-hmm. I find I'm most creative when I'm actually stepping away from work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so all your creative juices start flowing because then when you're actually involved in your day to day, right? When you're doing whether you're working at a corporate or whether you're doing the restaurant business, doing what you're so caught up in the activities that the patterns are so fixed for you, right? As to what you're doing on a day. When you step out of your routine, right? Mm-hmm. We actually have a second brand. It's an interesting story. We have a second brand called, can I say, say it? It's called Candace's Gourmet Sandwiches, which is the second brand we launched earlier this year.
I'm going to bleep it out. No, I'm joking. Yeah, okay.
So that came to me because I went to Hyderabad, to look at the market for Chinita to expand there,
Mm-hmm.
And I just decided to go for one night just to, drive around the city, see what's going on, what the F&B scene is there. And I was sitting in the hotel the next day because there was a chief minister election happening. This was in December of 2018. And while I was sitting by the pool, eating some food, probably drinking a beer, at that moment, it came to me saying that, hey, we have this extra infrastructure in Bangalore. Why don't we think about launching a new brand there? What is the new brand that, what is something that we love that's missing in the Indian market?
Sure.
We all three partners were in the US for 10 years. We loved those sandwiches that you got there.
Yeah.
And suddenly everything just sparked, not only from the standpoint of saying, hey, this is a good idea, but I already thought about how to execute it. It occurred to me that we have a space that we are renting that was functioning as a central kitchen, which has extra capacity. We can probably add more people there, not increase our overheads. The whole thing took fruition from from a holistic level.
Sure.
And that all happened in the span of maybe 15 minutes of sitting by the poolside in Hyderabad,
Okay.
So I'm saying that gives you clarity on direction. Clarity comes at moments when you actually are able to step out of your routine and be completely still and at peace,
Sure.
You don't need to be thinking. You don't need to be thinking all the time. You're most creative when you actually stop thinking.
Sure. So just to recap, if I understood correctly, and I think I did. So, but for those of you who may not know, Sam owns a restaurant and they started a new spin-off not a spin-off, but a new kind of line of sandwiches.
Yeah, and a new brand.
Yeah, a new brand.
Yeah.
And you're saying same thing as a lot of restaurant owners here in Bangalore or the world, where it's what do I do next? How do we increase profits? How do we increase revenue? How do we make our customers happy and all that stuff? Do we scale? Do we not? Do we go out? Do we go to Hyderabad? Do we keep it in Bangalore?
Right.
But regardless of all of that stuff, just by sitting at the pool, you had this completely fresh idea out of left field that kind of came in.
Absolutely. It came out of nowhere,
And that's the right choice more than whatever you were thinking in Hyderabad.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, there's actually more to this whole, it's when you have to make big business decisions also, like even in terms of expansion, or there's some really critical, maybe there's a new relationship that needs to start and you're not sure, you know. A lot of people sit there and, I mean, the practical way you hear about it, like, let me sit down and make notes, okay, fine, what are the positives of this? Let me do like a SWOT analysis. Let me, this is all our consulting jargon,
SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, sandwiches, weaknesses.
Let me sit down and do the pros and cons. I actually don't do any of that.
Anymore or in general?
Never, never. Where I actually get clarity on any decision that has to be made is when you sit for so there was a period like 2 or 3 years ago where I was actually really, sort of mentally kind of there's too much stuff spinning, and you just weren't. You were very unclear about most things, and the day was always like hard, and there was too many thoughts happening, too much like chaos happening inside you. So I met somebody who told me that all you need to do is sit for 20 minutes by yourself a day. That's it. And do that every morning or whenever. You can do it in the evening, do whatever. Just take 20 minutes to yourself and sit. So religiously every morning I actually sit and just, sit quietly. You call it meditation or whatever you want.
You make time for yourself.
And that's when you get clarity on all these answers, Like when you think about whether you want to do something or not do something, you get a feeling rather than actually a thought saying that, it's not an actual tangible thought saying, yes, I must do this. You get the feeling from inside, from a much deeper place. Something inside tells you what to do. And suddenly everything just feels good about that particular thing. If something is something you're not meant to do, you get that communication as well. It comes to you from inside. If you're able to, sort of quieten down everything and just listen, it comes to you from inside to even it gives you a bad feeling if you shouldn't do it. Like if there's some distrust or if something sounds too good to be true, you don't know whether to go down that path, you'll start getting that bad feeling from inside, and then you'll know that, hey, maybe I should be careful. I'm not going to jump into this. Let me go and ask more questions, or let me go and find out more about it. I need to start digging a few layers deeper.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you're saying 2 years ago, you kind of had that either epiphany or just like, well, everything seems to be going in circles. Let me give this a shot, which is kind of taking time for yourself. And that helped you kind of get clear.
Well, I'm also just clarifying. I meant just generally in life, like personally, work, everything. It was a kind of chaotic time. But then you go through ups and downs and, always. But I'm saying this actually helped to create a lot of clarity. Just that 20 minutes you take to yourself is life-changing,
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, there was 2 things that I again, read. I've been reading a lot, you guys, recently. But number 1 was, learn to be comfortable with boredom, which I don't think we do as a society or as people anymore. And in India, especially middle-class India, there's so many options. The internet is so cheap. It's never been easier to distract yourself, which means just because you're doing stuff doesn't mean you're doing important stuff. And sometimes the most important thinking comes from being quiet, right?
Absolutely.
And the second thing was, what was it? one of my favorite quotes ever is easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think you're right. When you, I don't want to say disconnect, go to Himachal, sit in the mountains. I have my issues with those people too. Because you can do that shit in your apartment. You don't need to be around the birds, But you are 100% right that, people do not focus on that. So for the people who might listen to this, and I've been watching your sort of journey the last few years. What is it that you want to say specifically? I mean, feel free to take the reins however you want.
Sure.
What are some things on your mind that you think either the youth of this country or anybody, whether they're 40 or 30, need to know about venturing out on your own and kind of finding that kind of those inner answers?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you're talking about in terms of actually finding direction to say that, hey, I'm doing this, but I'm not really the most content doing this. And I've always had this, sort of drive to want to venture out. And
Yes, because it's ironic, because for those of you who have MacBooks, you know, when it crashes, that thing goes around in circles over and over and over again. And I feel like that's a metaphor for a lot of us where, you know, something is going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might come back and give you the answer, but it probably just crashed.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I feel like we do that a lot. And I really think nobody talks about this.
No, absolutely.
So,
but it's a long question. There's many, many parts of that
well,
question.
Feel free,
so first
Sam. We
is
got 30,
even,
40 minutes. Yeah, so.
The first part is even just finding something that you actually care about doing. Like say you're in a job or even, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a job. Say you're actually doing a business that you don't care about. You know, I mean, it's not necessarily something that resonates at a deeper level with you, right? And things seem to be struggling, you know. And I also find that when you find something that you're sort of in tune with what you were, you know, meant to be doing, there's something in this universe that sort of helps you move ahead much faster, you know. Things start becoming a lot easier. You start to find that opportunities come along. If something breaks, it gets fixed immediately by something that was just sent to you, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just giving you examples. Like when we started first with our first restaurant, when we started in 2014, that was the first time in my life I actually felt that I'm completely connected to what I'm doing right now.
Sure.
This is giving me a satisfaction, you know, a sort of a gratification at a much deeper level than anything I've experienced before. And I was physically drained. I was at the first restaurant for 14 hours a day, 15 hours a day on my feet running around. But that's the part I love the most. And because I feel like my what I was doing on a day-to-day basis was so in tune with what I was meant to be doing, right? The path that you were supposed to find, right? Something at a vibrational level, or, you know, whatever. These are all, I don't want to get into too much into this,
that's fine.
But these things, something out there starts to help you, you know?
Yeah.
If we lost an employee for whatever reason, I would get a call like that day or the next day saying that, oh, hey, I have this position. Are you looking for this? You know, I mean, and I would just keep saying to myself, this is like magic, you know?
Yeah.
How does something like this, you know, happen? Like, it's just, there's too many coincidences for me to not, to be ignorant about it and say that there's nothing going on here. But that's what I'm saying. Most people actually end up, you know, what I mean, in a cliched like term, like swimming against the current constantly. When you actually find something that you care about doing, it doesn't have to be entrepreneurship. It doesn't have to be, you know, something as far left field as what Sanjay is doing, like, you know, comedy and, you know,
podcasting.
Yeah, but like whatever you're doing, you just, if you find something that resonates with you, even in a job, you start to find that you've turned around and you start swimming with the current in life. You know, everything starts to become easier. Everything moves forward much faster, you know.
So what do you say to the kid who, because in your case, you know, it was being in the F&B business and owning a business and entrepreneurial stuff. And now, is Candace considered a cloud kitchen? Is that?
It is. It's basically, we have the 2 cloud kitchens and 2 restaurants.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, who might be, because in Bangalore especially, a lot of Infosys 35-year-old guys are sitting on 30 lakhs or whatever. And then, I'm going to open up my own. And they think it's
but that's the biggest mistake. I mean, I think like anyone who has a dream to open a cafe or a restaurant or whatever it is.
Which is a ton of ex-IT guys in this city.
Yeah, no, everyone. Right? I mean, even just when I used to be at the first restaurant for like 2 years, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I ran into saying that, oh, you know, it's so great that you're doing this, because I've always wanted to open my own cafe. I have this idea for like a healthy restaurant. I have this idea for like, you know, a tea shop. I have this. Everyone for some reason is attracted to the F&B business, you know?
Yeah.
But no one realizes what goes into this business.
But
I don't want to
explore that. No, that's
you want to get into that, or just in general?
I do,
you know?
Because like you just said, everybody thinks they can open a restaurant, basically.
So being a customer of a restaurant is very difficult. Very different than being. It's like literally, you know, just because you own an iPhone doesn't mean I know how to run Apple. You know,
of course. I love that because so many people, and so restaurant, bars, hell, some even open gyms, whatever.
Absolutely.
But a lot of people who are in corporate who then find themselves sitting on some cash at 35 want to open up something that is traditionally brick and mortar or something they had growing up, cafe, restaurant, bar. So what do most of these guys or girls get wrong?
Okay, so it starts off fundamentally with what you actually choose to open. Okay, what are you actually opening? Does the market actually want that? When you do, okay, fine. Say you've got past the first step by saying that, hey, there's a gap in the market for this particular thing. Obviously, you have to enter somewhere where there's a gap, right?
Thai food or
whatever. There's
coffee.
It's an underserved market. Maybe it could be that there are 6 bars, but no bar is actually doing this. But I've seen that. That could be something that could work really well. But you have to establish that. Don't just jump into it and say, let me try, because the investment in this is huge, you know?
Yeah.
Setting up any F&B, even like a small cafe versus, I mean, obviously on a scale, it's very different. But compared to other businesses, it's expensive to set up because you're physically taking a space. You have to do it up. You have to hire, a relatively high number of people because F&B needs more people to run. It's a very labor-intensive business.
Sure.
Right? So be very clear as to what you want to open up first. Okay, now, fine, you've got past that first step. The second step is, where are you going to open this? Like, which part of the city? Like, who are you going to cater to? Like, what customers are around that area? You have to choose the right location.
Yeah.
I mean, just at least we didn't even choose the best location for our first restaurant. But somehow we made it work because our product was so differentiated. We do authentic Mexican food. And we found that the...
people will come for that.
People started to, the word of mouth was just crazy the first few months. I mean, we had lines of 1.5 hours for like 2 or 3 years, in the first, which was absolutely, we didn't expect that ever, So I'm saying you have to be clear about where you're opening. Then the third thing is you have to price correctly for that market. So what ends up happening in this case, I mean, just taking these 3 things, I'm sure there's more factors involved too, but many people will get at least 1 or 2 of these things wrong. They open the wrong concept, okay, which is something the market doesn't even look for. 2, they open it somewhere where the market doesn't even want that. And 3, they may overprice or underprice or, whatever. If you underprice, you're out of business because, if you overprice, you're too expensive and no one's going to come to you.
Sure.
So getting all these right is the critical formula, which I'd say that most people who are in jobs who just say that, I go to whatever. I mean, with that.
That's where I'm so confused about, because number one, let's say it's Bangalore or Chennai, where a lot of these guys will have a corporate or IT background.
Yeah.
And they believe in proof of concepts, which is test something that it works.
Absolutely,
and then scale.
Yeah.
Right.
And you should do that in any business. Absolutely.
And you guys did that by doing delivery and then or catering and then did a brick and
just
mortar.
to elaborate on that, we started off by doing stalls.
Yeah.
And then people from the stalls asked us to do catering because they liked our food,
And you realize you're onto something.
Yeah, then we got on, I mean, obviously through catering, if one person hires you serve 50 people at that party, you're getting validation from 50 more people. And then that continued. And then we actually started doing food at a well-known bar in Bangalore too.
So then my question is though, if you said most people usually get 1 or 2 of these things wrong, which are 3 of the biggest things: location.
But all 3 are critical. You have to get all 3 right.
Okay, here's what I want to know. Why do they get this wrong? Because if this is arguably one of their biggest financial decisions, and especially I joke around that in India, people spend more time deciding iPhone, Android versus should I marry this person or not? You know what I mean? So in a country where we analyze and we're very very frugal with our monetary decisions.
Sure.
Why do these guys get this wrong? Is it that they don't have the right reason for doing it? Is it that they just want it for the glamour? They just want to throw some money away? Why do you think a lot of them get it
It's
wrong?
actually a really good question because it moves on to a really important point,
Sure.
So decision making by emotion is very different from decision making by gut or by logic or whatever you want to I mean, those are 2 different things anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm saying what happens is the emotion gets so strong with something. Okay, so I'll tell you exactly what happens. Say you've been in a job. I mean, since you keep saying, I mean, you're using the IT as an example.
IT,
corporate, I'm just talking
I don't care,
corporate
whatever.
in general. When you're in a corporate job and you have a dream to do something else, then you've always had that when you go to work, anything frustrating happens, you say that, let me just quit this and, that would be so much better, Maybe you have a few friends who succeeded in that area or whatever it is, right? But your emotions have got up to a level where they're driving things, very strongly.
Sure.
You're emotionally invested now in this decision saying that, hey, I want to quit and open this, and I already know what I want to open. I want to open this type of restaurant or this type of bar, in I'm going to look for it in, this neighborhood or this neighborhood.
And
you haven't done the actual groundwork to understand if the market wants that because your emotion is driving this decision.
Yeah, you're not opening a restaurant, you're proving your mother wrong.
So that's what I mean. Or maybe your own frustration has led you to a point saying that, hey, I've had enough, I'm going to go and do this. But what you should do is actually spend this time valuably while you have the steady paycheck, while you have a good, sort of career going that takes care of, your life on a day-to-day basis, and use. So again, when we talk about finding your passion or, whatever, it's a very cliched kind of thing, but you should actually just spend half an hour a day doing groundwork for whatever you want to do while doing your job, That's what, I mean, even your favorite Gary Vee says the same thing. He says that you need to just spend maybe 20 to 30 minutes a day doing something else,
Yeah.
Go do this, attend a class, go read about something, watch videos on if you want to start a restaurant, Go
Sure.
sit at restaurants. Go talk to restaurant owners, you know.
Yeah.
Spend, obviously, within your community, within your own network, you'll be able to connect with a friend who knows somebody who owns a restaurant or, you know, is a manager at a restaurant or whatever, right? You can easily reach people. Spend the time valuably doing that. Don't allow it to reach a point where you're frustrated and that's why you want to, you know, move over. Because it's not easy. Like, I mean, any business that you start, anything you do off the beaten path is a huge struggle to get off the ground.
Sure.
You're talking about there's going to be many, many moments where you actually get into this and say that, hey, I wish I never left the job, you know? Yeah. So
that's great because, you know, it's funny because exactly what you just said. So many people think Google has all the answers for them where they don't need to do any actual physical groundwork, focus groups, talking to people. You know, like you said, would this concept work? Do you like, if you take any digital marketing or typical marketing class, they say, I need you to ask 300 people and annoy them. Do they like Mexican food? How often do they eat Mexican food? Would they drive out of more than 2 kilometers to get Mexican food? Do they have kids? And people, especially now, we all think we can hack our way to the answers. And you know, especially for the corporate millennial or whatever generation, if you Google something, you will find the answer you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some people will say, I opened a restaurant with no experience and it $10 million business.
But actually, even that point is fantastic because the human mind works that way. Okay, it's tuned to give you to seek information that you actually want to hear. You know,
some call it echo chambers. But is that? But there is still something in, you know, I'm on this trip right now where I think focusing on skills that people think are outdated are going to be the stuff that really elevates you. For example,
what kind of skills?
For example, okay, still reading books, even though you can get the cliff notes in a 6-minute YouTube video of the entire book, right? Or still going to a comedy show and asking the audience what they thought and how often do they go out and asking them for email IDs instead of just thinking you would do Facebook marketing only, right? Because when I started doing stand-up comedy in India and it became this big thing, all these people are like, we want to do a comedy show and we want to do a podcast and none of them have done it. So they all hear these buzzwords like microbreweries, for example, you know, all that Mexican food, Thai food.
Absolutely.
And then they just see it working in one area, but they have no idea why. And then those same people fail. Like when we had like Russell Brand here or one of the international comics, they were like trying to put like, so what other comedians should we get? And I was like, how do you not know who the comedians in the country are if this is what you're spending 5 crores on? I just feel like a lot of people don't focus on the basics, but I feel that's what's going to elevate you into the advanced. You know what I mean? So
No, but I just want to elaborate a bit on the point of, you know, when you talked about that echo chambers. I'm saying when people make the wrong decisions to do something, it's also because they're emotionally invested. I mean, when the emotions are so high towards a particular thing, you're making an emotionally driven decision, in which case you may even do a little bit of effort to actually collect information before you do it. But I've seen this countless times where people actually, the information that works against them, they choose not to hear. You know, where they literally like they've been given 10 pieces of information. These 4 or 5 actually tell them not to do this. You know, don't do it. But maybe they heard like 2 or 3 pieces of information that say that, oh, fine, you know, there is some potential here and, you know, you should pursue it. They actually choose to shut that out. And they say that I'm going to be, they say actually the mentality is this, that I'm going to be the different one, you know. Yeah, fine. Someone else failed in that area. Someone else did this, but it's not going to be me, you know, until they actually get there.
So a lot of people make these emotional decisions and, you know, God bless him. I don't mind taking his name. My friend Sandeep, who you know.
Yeah, of course.
Like, you know, he'll always ask my advice for should I podcast? Should I do this? Should I do that? But he already knows the answer he wants to hear. And I tell him, you need to do a podcast every week for like 2 years before anybody knows your name. It's just the grunt work you got to put in. And if you're lucky, it'll happen earlier. And then he'll be like, oh yeah, but what about somebody was telling me that Amazon this, that? I'm like, if you already think you know what you're going to do, just do it. But I'm telling you, 2 years from now, you could have one of the best podcasts in the country, or you could still be spinning your wheels on what should I do? Why isn't this working? Why isn't that working?
Absolutely. No. Again, just saying that, like when you're in the restaurant industry, there are so many people building for the restaurant industry. Like startups, you know, technology products, marketing products, whatever. You know, like I used to probably have like 4 meetings a week with
some app
people
or
coming
some,
someone to come pitch a new app or some new angle to, how to market for restaurants or, some, whatever but this is exactly what, when you talk about why people don't succeed, right?
Yeah.
It's because they actually come and meet restaurateurs who are from, in the business and who are giving them genuine feedback. And I see the way that some of them actually take the feedback.
They just roll their eyes.
No, they actually just, they sort of like, I mean, they've got their list of answers to answer back but there's no basis of logic in it,
Sure.
It's more that emotionally they are so invested in this business that they don't want to, it's too much for them to even fathom the thought of saying that, hey, this is not going to work and you better look at something else.
Is there an example you could give us?
No, but I mean, there's been plenty.
Like their app is more inefficient than efficient.
I'm just saying, for example, someone comes with an angle, to say that.
Like a hypothetical company called,
I remember
Twiggy or something.
I remember these. No, Twiggy's
not Twiggy.
The opposite example.
Yeah,
I'm saying that there was someone who came to pitch, before, even Zomato got into white label apps and all. So someone came to say that, hey,
what is white label, by the way?
It's basically just a standard format for an app where they can just plug in your brand and, make it look completely
cut and paste, customize their app just with your skin. Or
so it's made to look exactly like it comes from your company, but it's actually a standard solution that they're offering to multiple customers, and it's just a matter of changing the logo and how you want the thing to appear. So they came and I'm just giving you an example of an app where that this is probably not going to work. So someone was going around Bangalore a few years ago saying that we're going to make applications for restaurants. Okay, now why don't you want to get people to actually become part of your community? They download the app, they start following, once they download the app on their phone, you have a direct way of engaging with them,
Yeah, like a phone.
I mean, so whatever it is, whether you have a marketing, you have an offer running, a new menu coming out. If you want to talk directly, maybe they can chat with you directly in the app. They can place orders through the app.
Yeah.
But now fundamentally, you tell somebody like this that, okay, fine. There are, more than 10,000 restaurants in Bangalore. Okay. Every person has a list of maybe 10, 15, 20 restaurants that they go to, obviously more than that, but maybe some are loyal to a certain set, right? But even me, my favorite restaurant that I go to, if they came and told me that they have an app, what incentive do I actually have to download that app? Why do I want to engage with a restaurant with an app on my phone,
Sure. And just another...
It's just going to be an app that I download the first time. Maybe they incentivize me and say that, oh, you get this much off your bill if you download the app.
Sure.
But then am I really going to open that app again? I'll probably end up just deleting it in 4 or 5 months,
Sure.
So, I mean, when you give people feedback like this, they are so emotionally, driven towards saying that, no, yes, I'm going to make this succeed. I'm going to change human behavior. I'm going to change the way people actually interact with their phones and interact with apps, which is not going to happen.
Obviously.
So I'm just saying, I mean, there are many examples. This is just something that popped into my head. And of course, that app it never made it to market, but...
And the funny thing is, technology is meant to basically serve and assist, not to ultimately be the end product. You know what I mean? So even if you look at the best tech companies, especially these apps, they're made by business people who understand why this app would succeed, and then they kind of go from there, right? So even I get called. I had a call yesterday with this guy who was like, oh, we're making a platform to incentivize creators and you can engage with all your fans and you can take their feedback. And I was like, I have Instagram. I have social media. We already do that, right? And she's like, or this guy was like, no, but actually, no, you could redirect them here and then they could see your feed. I was like, but they're already on Instagram.
Yeah.
So why do I want them to go somewhere else? And then I could tell he was not getting flustered, but I got a little hey, do any of you actually create anything? Do any of you make podcasts or write a blog even? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, how do you know what we want to do then? You know what I mean? So...
No, but I mean, just to add a little bit to that, it's not innovation itself is a fantastic thing. The fact that we have so many innovators in this country, so many people who are actually, in taking the plunge to say that, hey, I have an idea for, an app or a new business or, something that doesn't exist. That's absolutely fantastic. What I was trying to highlight with this thing is the way that entrepreneur actually takes feedback from his real customers,
Sure.
It's the attitude with which you take the feedback. And now this is where the distinction comes in from an emotionally driven, invested person versus that person who's actually able to step back and assess the market for what it actually is and keep the emotions aside, If someone tells you that, hey, you're building a bad product, it's going to hurt your ego, you know.
Sure.
But you have to allow it to hurt your ego and say that, hey, you know, this guy knows more than I do. He's from the industry. He's a potential customer of mine.
And he's giving you invaluable direction.
Exactly.
Right?
So rather than argue back, you know, and say that, no, you know, fine, maybe you don't like it, but someone else likes it. You know, you need to actually take the feedback and say that, okay, fine, let me at least, I'm going to take this objectively. Let me make notes. Let me write this down. Let me take this back to our team and give the feedback back. And then we'll assess. If I get 6 or 7 more people telling me the same thing, then I know I need to change something.
Sure.
So I think a universal trait that you'll see with successful entrepreneurs, I mean, of course, they talk about them being stubborn and connected to their vision, but they're also very connected to reality.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the best entrepreneurs are the ones who understand their markets so deeply. So it's not that they're not God, that they understand everything from I mean, if you enter a new industry, you need to understand from the people who are in that industry, right? So these entrepreneurs, of course, they may be committed to their vision to change things and disrupt markets, and you know, but they understand reality so well, right? If you're disconnected from the ground reality and driven by emotion, it's not a good recipe to actually create. You're just probably going to end up wasting, you know, some time. You'll probably waste a year or two, burn a lot of money, and then come back to the drawing board and then say that, okay, fine, now I've got my butt kicked. Let me, you know, now get on the path that, you know, makes more sense, which could be another product or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's so funny because even when you talked about Gary Vee, initially I thought, you know, this guy is a load of it. And like, I need to make fun of him and all that stuff because he's all hustle.
Yeah.
But then I watched and I enjoyed some of his stuff. But I think real entrepreneurs, and I don't have too much entrepreneurial experience, but I've seen a lot where it's also not only hustle, but humble. You know what I mean? And know when you're wrong, because the 2 years is going to go by anyways, right? And you could either have a successful thing, even if you pivoted 6 months in, or you had to be humble and eat your vegetables and realize you were wrong, admit it, and then correct it and move on. Or, you know, 2 years, you'll just continue to be stressed out. And
exactly. And you're swimming against the current for 2 years, like what I said before. And every successful startup has probably pivoted not once, but probably more than once. In the process, how many stories do you hear of an app that, whatever, even like Instagram starting off as something different when they first started? You know,
Snapchat started as something different.
Yeah, right. Facebook. They had a completely different like value proposition. What they were choosing to attack in the market was different from what they're actually doing today. It's because the founders had the ability to say that, hey, what we're doing is not grounded in reality. The reality is that the market wants this. You know, let me give the market that, you know. And that is when they were able to start swimming with the current and seeing scale and, you know, like everything, you know, sort of work out to a level where it went way beyond what they imagined from the beginning, right?
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And, you know, I don't know if the term is called emotional intelligence or emotional IQ, but you're so right that so many people, they just think they have the answers, which is why they're doing it in the first place. But, you know, it's like the smartest person in the room is willing to accept he's not the smartest person in the room.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean? Like, because he's going to he's going to like the best. What I love about right now, the time we're in, is you can literally sit with somebody, and if it's mutually beneficial to both of you, you can get 20 years of information out of them in like a lunch or a day. But you have to be willing to drop the facade and drop the ego. You know what I mean? And very few do. So that's a great point. So the reason, and be careful, ladies and gents, if any of you are trying to start, even if you're trying to start a coffee shop with your spare $50,000 or whatever, you have no business doing it if you've never sat for 3 days in a coffee shop and learned how the machines are cleaned, what the customers aren't there for coffee necessarily. They're there to do their work, and in 6 hours they're going to spend 100 rupees. So is that viable? You know,
but find out, talk to other coffee shop owners, understand the market, you know, like understand the business you're getting into,
and be okay that is the market. So rather than get angry at the customer or think you're going to kick them out after an hour, find a way to make it work for you. You know what I mean? So cool. So I mean, that's my favorite part. I think that's the price of admission to this episode. that do something with, you know, with some bit of be willing to put your emotion at the door. So,
right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Anything else you want some of these people to know?
Oh no! I mean, when we were talking before the podcast actually started, we were talking about the grass being greener on both sides, right? Like, I mean, the people who are in corporate say that, hey, you know, the guy who's off the beaten path and, you know, doing the grass is like way greener there.
Sure.
And maybe even people who are off the beaten path, you know, many end up actually going back to their old jobs or going back to corporate.
Yeah.
You know, because they also realize that what a steady paycheck and what, you know, a structure and a certain structure in their lives, like, you know, the value that actually gives to them, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't mind touching a little bit upon that, because I feel like people in the world today, like young people, are driven to ideas of success, right? That will allow them to, you know, achieve, to keep on trying to achieve to get there, but without getting any deeper satisfaction in the process, you know? There's still an emptiness, there's still something missing. So I want to actually get into what will actually fulfill that deeper kind of void that exists, you know, through this whole process. Even say in corporate, you end up moving up a lot, you know, you things are going great, you know, I had the same situation in the US, by the way. I was doing well at work, like quite, you know, the partners, everyone I had, everybody's buy-in, you know, I was moving up and things were, the path was, but there was something always missing inside, you know?
Yeah.
Even, and no matter how much money you made, whether you bought the next, you know, like
car, house,
the first, and then the iPhone came out, I was one of the first like buyers of it. This came out, this expensive thing. I was traveling, you know, the world, like, you know, all those things were happening. But at the end of the day, it still came down to, there's a void. That void needs to be filled somehow, you know?
Yeah.
So, and to me, the answer was that I knew that I wasn't going to find my peace in corporate. I was going to find my own purpose is actually a much better word. I was going to find my purpose outside of corporate. But many people's purpose is actually in corporate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, if I did not find comedy, I would still be killing it, eating my fancy sushi or whatever.
Yeah.
And I loved it. You know what I mean? I loved it because I was good at it.
Yeah, sure.
I learned how to like make the sales calls happen and how to get the partners happy and eventually be a partner. And I saw that money was coming in. I was buying stuff for my family. I was really enjoying it. Yeah. And I agree with you. And I'm sure I've made mistakes too, where I've told people that corporate is a waste of time, or, you know, you need to follow your this, that. But there's a time and a place for everything. You know what I mean? And for not everybody says you need to be your own thing. Yeah. You can be the vice president and you're doing great. You
Absolutely. I think it's about finding purpose within what you're doing. So whether you're working for somebody, some people are meant to be in corporate. Yeah. Then they're actually never meant to, you know, sort of, because their purpose was actually there. So I'd say even, we talked about this too, but Mark Zuckerberg has there's a famous thing that he said where you need to find purpose in whatever you're doing. Find the things that you're best at doing. So
even if you are working at McDonald's, find purpose in it.
Yeah. So like, we spoke about this example too, but I'm just going to repeat it. But like when you take, so my mom is actually a happiness coach. Okay. Not a coach, but like she goes to corporates.
If anybody's listening. Yeah. She goes to corporates telling them.
No, but to instill happiness into the organization, because productivity goes up, retention goes up, the output of the team goes up, their own day-to-day lives become happier. As a team, they're happier to come to work. So, I mean, I'm saying a lot of CEOs now are recognizing the value of having happy organizations. Okay. And that's what she tries to instill.
So how does she, I mean, without explaining the whole thing, like how does she kind of get people in that space? Yeah.
So, I mean, there's like modules, but it's all in very basic terms to explain to somebody how, you know, it's sort of understanding a little bit about your own mental makeup. It's all done in a group setting, like 25, 30 people at a time. So it's not like a personal, like, sort of counseling session or anything like that.
Don't we need that a little bit though? Like
some people do,
people don't ask them. I mean, I'm gonna let you continue. Don't worry, guys, not interrupting him. But we need to ask ourselves the tough questions, right? Sometimes.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah. If someone's willing to look deeper and start to ask, which many people are. The other thing I found too is that many people working within organizations, I mean, at any level, employees of our restaurant, people working in like big corporates, everybody is missing guidance from a much higher level, you know?
Sure.
So they actually do look for answers in terms of...
No. Sam is laughing.
Where did she come from? I know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My maid is here, so she's cleaning around.
Not just the maid, you too. Yeah. I was like suddenly out of the corner of my eye, I was like... Yeah, so I was saying that people are fundamentally... I mean, you look at India's context. You have people from smaller towns, like, you know, someone who studied in like Tech University and like Chandigarh or, you know, wherever, like tier 2, tier 3 city. Yeah. They move to the big city and get a job at like the big company, right? The Flipkart or, you know, whatever it is. They come here pursuing their ideas of success that have been instilled in them from the time they were born, right? From what they see on TV, from what they, you know, they've been told that, you know, this is what you need to be successful, right? And they're pursuing
B2B. Get it? Yeah. Okay, go on.
So they're pursuing a path, right?
Yeah.
Which, like I said, they're missing something at a deeper level,
Yeah.
And what you'll also find in Bangalore is that many of these people end up going out to drink on Tuesday night, going out to drink on Wednesday night. Thursday night is like, okay, fine, with the co-workers. Wednesday night is with this other group of my 4 or 5 friends who are working in similar jobs. Let's meet at Satya's or let's meet at Bob's Bar or whatever and go drinking.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that if you find satisfaction, the deeper satisfaction, you wouldn't look for distraction necessarily, Yeah. And I don't just mean drinking, and those places are great, but I mean like other things too.
Golfing
I need to travel.
whatever.
I need to let's plan the next trip. Like you've already come back from a trip and you're already thinking about where to go next, like a month and a half later,
Yeah.
But these are people, like I said, there's something lacking within you. So where you need guidance is you need someone to sort of talk to who can help put things in perspective for you, right?
Yeah, it's like... Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to.
No. Just to add to what you're saying, it's like how people go, oh, thank God it's Friday.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, why? I mean, if you are enjoying, you should be excited. I'm not saying love what you do every minute because even you and I are doing stuff we choose to do, but we're still in spreadsheets and in boring.
And half my day is spent like yelling at people. Okay, like that's what I do. Like I go to work, get irritated. There's something didn't run the way it should.
Sure.
I have to meet with. There's another problem happening. I mean, restaurant has a lot of moving parts.
And here's a negative thing on entrepreneurship is. Again, once you are in what you want to do, whether it's restaurant, comedy, whatever the hell, you're way more irritable because you care that much more about it.
Absolutely. But the consequences, it's actually another good segue into the consequences of what you're doing are that much higher, Because when you're doing your own business, that business actually has a direct, the way it performs on one month versus the other, month is a direct impact on what's actually ending up.
Of course,
your kind of the amount of money you earn or the kind of lifestyle you lead, all those things, if it's tied to your business, the repercussions of something going up and down are way more.
Yeah.
So when something goes down, the down is very, very difficult, to deal with. And in corporate, you may not necessarily feel that because even when I was in the US during recession time, like there was layoffs happening around me left, right, and center. But I was getting my fixed salary every month.
So you didn't care as much. I mean, it didn't.
No, I mean the impact is not. I know the company is going through a lot of trouble. Every company was in 2008. But at the end of the day, as long as you're getting your salary every month, you're working hard. You don't feel the impact as much.
Sure.
When you do what you do or what business people do, you could have like great years, really, really bad years. You could have a year where you just everything blow it out of the park. And the next year could be terrible. And it's changing environments too. Like in the kind of, when you're doing, what you're doing independently, both, everyone, I mean, entrepreneurs, creative people, whatever, the next thing could come in that could disrupt whatever you've been doing so far.
Yeah.
Businesses that have been doing well for like 6 years could suddenly in the 7th year, some market force has changed that just drives them down to where the business may not even exist that year, Of
course, yeah.
There are stories like this too, plenty.
No, I totally agree. And I guess maybe we went off a little off track, but the people who are in corporate, society also glamorizes, romanticizes, is entrepreneurial. Like sometimes I'm like, wow, I made $4,000 on this deal or something. Yeah. And I'm like, I would have made that in 10 days if I was still at work. You know what I mean? Like, or like my friend just sold his first product on some Amazon business. He started and he's been at it for 3 months and he finally made $200. And I was like, weren't you making that on Tuesday? So it's so weird.
But the society thing also is a very hard, now it's moving more towards where society is actually saying, giving some credence to you becoming an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
This never existed like 3 or 4 years ago. If you were an entrepreneur, the kind of stuff you'd have to face from a society standpoint was basically, if you left a good job to actually become an entrepreneur, was actually, and people, again, human nature, the human, people like to put themselves in positions of superiority versus other people,
Yeah.
Like it's always you're trying to, it makes you feel good.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody.
And which is why people gossip too.
Yeah.
That's why they get so much satisfaction from, talking about this one, got divorced or this one's business closed down or,
Everybody thinks they're the hero of the story.
Yeah.
But there can only be one hero and there's 50 supporting actors. You know what I mean? And it's okay if you have the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah.
Not everybody can be president.
Yeah.
But I think the cabinet, the prime ministers, everyone is doing successful.
Yeah.
But we glamorize that. Dude, I feel bad for Like, I imagine when like some Indian national cricket team player goes to dinner and everyone is asking him about Virat. And he's like, that guy's the best. But all of us make $10 million. You know what I mean? Like, but they're only asking about Dhoni or Virat or Sachin, whoever. And you just kind of feel like none of these people are even on the team. Yet they're making you feel like shit for being in the 0.00 top 1%.
Absolutely. Which is another great point. I mean, everything you're saying is like sparking something, but like, you know, like the entire measure of success is completely relative in terms of like the person who, you know, if you take it as a spectrum, this person may be looking at the person who's slightly above him and being like, oh, what a fantasy of a life that person lives, you know? But you don't know what pressures that guy's facing, you know? You don't know what his peer group is, what, you know, what he considers like success is different from what the person who's looking up to him considers as success. And this goes on to a level where even like, I mean, I'm just saying there's a fantasy in, you know, in our existence. We think that, oh, you know, when Forbes publishes the list of billionaires for the year, right? You look at, okay, fine, the world has like 2,800 billionaires now. Anyone who's like a billionaire must be leading like a magical life and must be, you know, like, it's, you know, fancy cars and, you know, maybe they fly on private jets and, you know, they don't, there's a certain unreachable, like, fantastical thing associated with it.
Of course.
But the guy who's a billionaire is going through the kind of pressures that you could never imagine, okay? At the level that you are operating at. Until you reach there. You don't know what kind of pressures that guy faces. The kind of public scrutiny they are under, the kind of things that they are dealing with. You don't know how he's gauging himself against the people like in his group. Say he's part of like a billionaires like group. And one guy's net worth is 1 billion, the other guy's net worth is 15 billion.
Or ladies,
I mean, sorry, of course, and ladies too. I mean, tons and tons.
I know, I'm just messing with it.
Sorry, I wasn't saying it from, but I'm saying that guy or lady is actually feeling really small, being in a room where his net worth is 1 and the others are 15 because this guy is buying a plane that this guy can't afford.
Well, and, that's what society would have you think, I feel. Like, but you are right. Closer to home, you can go to KGA or any golf course here and the Goldman Sachs guy making $1 million feels like shit compared to the guy making $5 million, which to all of us is like...
My point is that this never ends, is what... I'm saying it as a thing that it's a relative structure which never actually ends up ending,
exactly,
you know?
Which since most of us won't be billionaires, we probably don't realize, but you're 100% right. And I feel like this happens more and more in Indian society. I could be wrong because we are very numbers minded. We're very reputation minded. We're very like rank minded. So like people need to stop trying to be number one and being okay with being in the 1% or the 10%.
Sure.
Aim high, but don't continuously, because it, like you just said, it's indefinite. It's 0.1, 0.01, 0.001, and that's no way to live.
Absolutely. No, I'm saying, again, just to close the loop on this aspect of it, it's fine what your purpose is. Work towards it. Work towards success. Set goals for yourself. Set how much, money you want. It could be something astronomical, Work towards that, but do it all with perspective, Don't have this idea that, when I reach there, I'm going to be absolutely like, it's when I become a billionaire, I'm going to be, super happy and, living like, they have their own sets of struggles where some of them even fall from there to nothing, Yeah. So I'm saying you just need to work out the path for yourself. But find purpose, find things that you connect with. That's all. Whether it's in your work situation or, you need to actually leave that job to find something else. Stay in the job if that's where you find purpose too, right?
And I think, so bringing it back to, and we'll close on this, you were saying that your mom does this sort of happiness stuff.
Yeah,
so
sure.
What's the kind of, like, for the people who, whether she talks to 20 people or to 5 people, how does she get that answer out of them or get them to even look in the right direction?
What she teaches is very basic kind of, because I'm saying, in the context of the number of people working, there are very few who actually think about sort of internalizing and figuring out what, to start thinking about their own happiness, right?
Yeah.
They haven't even like entered, the subject hasn't entered their head yet.
Yeah. It's like, scary. Oh my God, I don't want to think about this. No one's ever made me think about it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, it's something, so she's the first exposure they have to saying that, hey, am I actually happy with this stuff if when they're actually done with the program, they've actually thought about a lot of things that will help them to start to be happier people, Okay. She does it a lot through like there's like certain like short stories, like parables. She explains about, about what happiness is. She explains about desires. She explains about when people are striving to, buy the next car or whatever it is, or versus like, doing an experience versus doing like travel.
Yeah.
Which one is actually going to give you more lasting happiness, you know?
Sure.
So it's about putting things in perspective. No one's saying, again, nothing stops you from achieving those amazing goals that you set for yourself. Reach as high as you want,
Yeah.
But just do it with perspective and do it being happy and with purpose, So,
Okay, got it. So she somehow gets them, I wouldn't say it's like a corporate therapy, but she at least gets them to ask themselves some questions.
Absolutely.
It's funny, like a lot of us who are in why the rat race is so comfortably uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In the sense that, or so uncomfortably comfortable.
Yeah.
What I mean is because you're basically just chasing these next cookies that it never forces you to go deep internally.
Absolutely. Where do you have the time? And when you do have time, you just distract yourself with something else, right?
Yeah. And so most people, whether it's drinking or drugs or playing sports or women or men or dating or whatever, they know that there's something there, but they know that if they just focus on these things, that gives them those short-term satisfactions.
Right.
As does corporate or even entrepreneurial big bucks, making an app and selling it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But ultimately, you're going to die alone. No, I'm saying ultimately it's all going to come back to you. Right.
Yeah.
So cool, man. I think this was great because I have a lot more questions even about my own. So funny. Even Sam and I were talking and I was like, I think if I move to America, maybe I'll also go into work for a little bit again, just to keep, what I want people to take away from this, and feel free with any signing off words, is both things in life are more than okay. And in fact, most of us are not going to be number one. We're going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you need to find out how to be the best number 2 or the best number 3. And basically, number 1, my favorite thing out of this podcast was, recognize your emotions.
Yeah.
Because you're so right, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they only ask what they want to hear.
Absolutely.
Number 2, where we started, never confuse being busy with being productive, because you're going to wake up a year from now and like nothing good happened strategically. Yeah. Whereas had you been patient. So cool. Any final words, Sam?
No, I mean, I have stuff that I've already wrapped up before, but
sure.
Just to summarize what I wanted to get through on this podcast, I want everybody to kind of just start to think a little bit about what they're doing that's giving them deeper satisfaction. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you start to recognize that there's a little bit of like that emptiness that I was talking about, no matter how well you're doing at work, no matter how well things are going, you're still feeling that there's that void and that little bit of emptiness, just start to actually think, maybe spend 15 or 20 minutes a day quietly, okay?
Sure.
And you'll start to find that certain answers will start coming. I know people look at this kind of stuff and say,
no, I think most people who listen to this are okay with the concepts of meditation, or at the very least.
But we don't even have to call it meditation. I'm literally saying take 20 minutes to yourself to sit a day. And if you recognize that something like this is happening within you, which is probably the case for like 98% of people, the 2% that have actually found peace are a rare breed. It won't even be 2%.
Yeah.
But you have to recognize that this is happening first. And then if you sit for 20 minutes a day and just take that time to yourself, you'll actually start getting answers as to how to actually get that satisfaction.
Sure.
Maybe there's a few changes you might have to make. Maybe there's things you need to start thinking about. Maybe you need to put things in certain perspective.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell all of you, I've said this before, I don't think people find their passions or even find solutions. Those solutions find them, and they're like an itch that eventually it starts like a little rash.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's something uneasy in your stomach, so you kind of just prick, but it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
And it may just stay there as like a little annoyance, but eventually you're going to have to address it. And you're completely right. So, ladies and gents, as we wrap up on this podcast, to exactly what Sam said, silence is the loudest in your distracted world today. So if you do anything after you press stop, maybe you're sitting in your Uber right now, go ahead and put your phone down, lock the door so no pickpockets to steal your phone, and forget 20 minutes. Start with 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And just close your eyes and let that crazy brain of yours freak the hell out of you. So I think if you take anything away from this, please, 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 guys and girls, 5 minutes to yourself. That's all. And then
absolutely. I think
that'll go a long way.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Any final words?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that when you actually, when I was talking about recognizing that void, which you will start to recognize, I mean, that you could just think about on any given day and say that, yes, there is something inside me that doesn't feel fulfilled, I know I'm doing, everything seems to be on the surface going great in my life, work's going well, relationships are going well, whatever, but there is something. Just start to understand what that is. And the answers may actually even tell you that you don't need to make a change at all, okay? Some people, it may say you do need to make a change, okay? What you're doing is not fulfilling you. The situation you're in, whether personal, professional, it's not giving you that fulfillment, okay? But for some people, it may just tell you that you need to, yes, you're starting to recognize that void. By sitting quietly, you're going to start getting answers. The answers may tell you that you need to just put what you're doing right now in perspective. Be more appreciative for what you have, If you have a good job and you realize that, hey, this company is pretty good, I get paid well, I have flexibility, I have time to spend with my family, then maybe you just need to look at your job slightly differently and find the larger purpose in what you're doing. Like, what is the goal of this company that you're working for? Okay, fine, their goal is a good goal. So I'm aligned with that larger goal, So that was the point I wanted to make, is that you may or may not necessarily have to make a change out of this process. It's completely on an individual by individual basis.
No, I think that's great. And I hope this was helpful for you guys. Please do like, rate, review the podcast, and let us know. Comment either on Instagram or Twitter or wherever if you have a question for Sam. I know he loves sharing it. His opinions. and both of us left working in corporates. So people ask me questions like this every day, and I'm more than happy to answer, dude, because it sounds so silly. Like, oh, I'm 30 and I'm making good money and life has been good to me and I got the nice business class this and that. Yeah, I'm just not people don't get it.
No, and people jump right from one thing to another. People, the answer is someone who's like 28 says they work in a company for 2 years and say, because I'm not finding the satisfaction, okay, let me look for something else, another job. Then it's a trap, basically you need to look a little bit deeper and find out what's really not making you happy.
A 20-year-old will never understand us saying you shouldn't jump for $10,000 more here. It's not going to be they'll never get that. Go, that's $10,000.
Yeah.
But just like we're talking about Bill Gates or whatever, trust me, if people are when a 65-year-old man gives me life advice and I can see where it's coming from, I'm going to take it pretty seriously. You know what I mean? If a guy on his deathbed is saying, please do something that makes you happy, I'm going to take it seriously. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening.
Birdy num num. Birdy num num. Birdy num num.